Today we're watching a video called How to Get People to Open Up. This is something that Mitch has struggled with a lot in his life. This is Tess.
I'm Tess.
This is Mitch.
This is Mitch.
And this is Eli.
Just a couple of months ago, I met up with an acquaintance of mine that I had met online. And even though this was the first time we ever spoke to each other in person, we ended up talking about relationships. He told me about his dating life and his relationship with his fiancée. And within just 10 minutes, he had already disclosed to me how he was having second guesses regarding his recent engagement. He was having doubts about getting married. And he literally said to me, "Man, I haven't told anyone this. Not my friends, not my coworkers, definitely not my fiancée, not anyone."
Okay, quick trigger. I've thought a lot about this. What is it that makes someone be like, I want to spend the rest of my life with you? And how many people, especially like, we're all from the US, in the US who, like, you make that decision and then it just like 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, it doesn't work out. And does that mean that it's the wrong decision? I don't know.
Maybe it was the right decision at the time. There's one really cool take on this. The people who I do a lot of work with at the Temple of Hip Hop, which is like a spiritual organization, they say that marriage, the way that they want marriage to be, is 5-year commitments.
Whoa.
And that every 5 years you need to have a new ceremony.
That's cool.
I love that.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Stuff like this happens to me all of the time. People tell me things that they don't usually share with others. Secrets, radical opinions, past traumas, things like that. And because I'm able to get people to open up to me like this, these relationships thrive and we usually become good friends for years down the line. Today I'm going to show you exactly how you can get people to open up to you so that you can create deeper and more fulfilling relationships in your own life. And there's really only 2 things you have to do. First, you have to learn to reduce your filter. If you think about it, the reason why we are scared to say certain things or to act in certain ways is because we are afraid of how others will react. We're scared of being made fun of looking like a fool, of being branded as an outcast. So we tend to keep a lot of our thoughts, ideas, and feelings bottled up inside. Instead of talking about things that we really want to talk about, we put on a filter and we spend most of our time conversing in small talk. We talk about things like the weather, our classes, last night's sports game, because these are all safe topics. But secretly, deep down inside, we're all looking for that special someone who we can share our strange thoughts and ideas with. Now, if you come along and you show them from the start that you don't really care about being a perfect snowflake, that you don't really filter yourself, and that you are willing to talk about things that are deemed as socially unacceptable or strange, then people will want to open up to you.
What do you guys think about the take? Because the take here is that in order to get other people to open up, you should be super open with other people in terms of how you're speaking so that they feel safe speaking around you. Do you guys agree with that point?
Yeah.
Well, what makes that first person feel able to open up? You know, it feels like chicken and egg. Someone's got to feel safe enough to open up or receive that, and who's going to start it?
Yeah. Feels like that first person has to have like a certain amount of courage that's not really immediately validated. Like that you have to jump off a bit of a bridge, and then the second person, it's like so much easier for them.
It's funny that whenever you're like in a group and there's something that multiple people are thinking but nobody wants to say, and then one person says it and then everyone else is kind of like, oh yeah, I feel the same.
Open
up, and I feel like that's with a lot of things, especially things that go against societal norms.
This dude in the middle of the screen with the glasses, that guy's got some stuff going on. Wow.
This guy doesn't really care too much about what society thinks, so it should be safe for me to talk to him about things that I've been bottling up inside. You want to be that guy. You want to show them that you don't really have a filter, and it's pretty easy to do this. All you have to do is share something that is considered to be sort of weird, something that is slightly out of the norm. For example, I will sometimes tell people about how I don't sit on toilets. Fun fact, I squat on top of them when I do my business. Why? Well, it's because when I was a kid, I just didn't like the cold feeling of my butt touching the seat. But it turns out that we humans are meant to use the toilet in a squatting position. There are a ton of benefits, but let's not get into that too much here. You can look into that on your own time. The point I'm trying to make is that when you share something that's sort of strange like this, people will instinctively react by thinking, huh, that's weird. But deep down inside, they're also thinking, huh, this guy doesn't really care too much about what others think. So it should be okay if I talk about some of the stuff I've been bottling up inside as well. I can relax and filter less of my words and thoughts. Now, it's very important to note that there is a fine line between being seen as someone who has a reduced filter and being seen as someone who is just plain old crazy. And it all depends on your perceived value, which is a concept we talked about in a previous video. There's a difference between that unemployed guy who lives next door coming up to you and talking about seeing aliens as compared to someone like Bob Lazar, who's a well-known scientist coming up to you and talking about seeing an alien spaceship. If your value is too low, people will just think that you're crazy. They're going to try their best to get away from you. So you should only reduce your filter and say weird things if your value is high enough, which means...
What is going on right now?
So, I think that this is a societally true take right here, that like if someone who has a lot of status says something far out, people aren't gonna take it as such a crazy thing to say. Okay. Or they're gonna be like, it's far out, but this guy must know what they're talking about because boom boom boom.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've been trying to do in my life is not have those hierarchies that do exist in my mind, these social hierarchies, change the way that I perceive what somebody's saying. Because it could be that crazy person who just comes out with a crazy hot take out of nowhere and you're like, I have no idea who this guy is. He has no reason for me to listen to him. It could be that take could be super helpful for you. But you need to value that as equal to the value as someone of higher status saying the same thing. And I think like the only time that it's really helpful to not perceive things as equal in that way is if you see that someone's teaching something that they've done. If they've like taught it and they've done it and now they're teaching it, it's like, okay, listen to that person more than someone else who hasn't done it trying to teach you about that thing.
I love that.
Yeah. But besides that, trying to look at it all as equal, because it's just like, how many of the takes do we just have in our head that are just takes in our head? And everyone's got it.
That's so interesting that makes me think about how every time I hear a take from someone, I always relate it through the filter of who they are and who I think they are. Like, do I think they're a reputable source? Why? Is it just the things that they said? It's just like making me think in that direction.
So many societal biases that play into that too. Absolutely. And it also makes me think about, I feel like there was this one video I watched where there was like a big group of people and there was like one billionaire in the room and everyone guessed wrong because he was the one wearing like jeans, a flannel, whatever, and everyone else was dressed really well. And it really makes me think, like, I wonder how many of our perceptions of people are just so wrong and devalue them when really, like, the billionaire might have, you know, innovative thoughts and whatever's, but we might discount it if we didn't know he was the billionaire kind of thing.
I think it helps if you're going all about all this in person too, because like you can get like oftentimes what really allows me to like listen or maybe take with a grain of salt things with people is like the energy vibe check that I get when I meet someone in person that you can't really get online, which like so many people are just day to day getting takes from people online, and you just don't have, you only have like whatever their reputation is to go off of, whereas if you're in person you get like the feeling like, oh man, this person fills up a whole room, or oh man, this person kind of feels a bit phony, and then you like get that much more genuine check. Yeah.
I'm so interested to see the studies on COVID on social development because of the online everything.
Yeah, one of my cousins is an RA in college right now, and he was saying how they just did a training where they were talking about the like incoming freshmen and realizing that the incoming freshmen right now didn't have their like sophomore and junior year of high school in
Wow.
person. Which like think about how much development you went through sophomore and junior year of high
Yeah.
school like with other people, like
Yeah.
all the awkward stuff you went
Right.
through that made you
Right,
then
right.
understand how to interact with people a lot better.
Yeah.
Critical.
But like if people didn't go through that and now they're going through it in their first years of college,
Yeah.
when you have like more access to more things, I don't know, there's just like a different development.
Now, after you've shown someone that you don't really have a filter by saying something out of the norm, it's still up to you to guide the conversation in a way that will eventually get them to open up. See, most of the time, people just won't talk about things that they've been bottling up for months or even years unless you prompt them to, which is why the second thing you have to do is ask the right questions. And not just any question. There's a special type of question that I personally like to use a lot in conversations. They're what I like to call assumption questions. All it is when you make an assumption about someone based on an observation and see if it's true or not. Going back to the example from the beginning of the video, when I was having the conversation with my acquaintance, I noticed that he had a very monotone expression on when talking about his recent engagement. So I said, I'm just gonna be honest with you, man. You don't really sound that excited about the engagement. Is there something bothering you? Assumption questions like this do two things. First, it shows that you are really, really listening. Because the only way you can make an assumption like this is if you are paying 100% close attention to what they were saying, how they were saying it, and their body language. The very fact that you're paying this much attention shows that you genuinely care about what's being said, and that's something that people really, really like. It makes them feel good. The second thing this does is it causes them to react. If your assumption is wrong, they will instinctively want to correct you. He might say something like, oh no, it's not that I'm not excited. I'm just tired from my long flight here, yada yada. In this case, you can simply take that information and branch off into another topic. You can talk about how you recover from jet lag too. It's up to you.
This all is giving me the thought of like more meta discussion of what is the importance of getting people to open up to you.
We didn't even ask that question
We
to
didn't
start.
even ask it.
I feel like it's a very evolutionary thing to build social bonds, and one of the ways in which it's very common and very powerful and lasting, I feel like, is with vulnerability and opening up.
Like shared vulnerability.
Shared vulnerability.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and through that there's mutual trust and like, oh, this person's on my team, they're not gonna kill me, you know, they're in my group.
Yeah. I think that feels really natural to me, like with people who are really close to you. And I think what I'm realizing is more what I was thinking here was like, do both of you value getting people you don't really know to open up, and why? Because of course, like, you want to be as open and vulnerable, at least this is like a really clear thing for me, as open and vulnerable with the people that I'm closest to. Like, I want to get as far deep as we can go, but then there's like other people who, like, maybe I don't really care that much about being like getting that for them to open up and me opening up as much. I just want to hear your takes on it.
I feel like for me, what is very important is getting past surface level. Like, I think that I liked how he mentioned that at the beginning of this video, was saying how so much of the time we hang out on the surface level, talk about sports games and stuff because that's safe.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that true connection only comes once you're going past safety a little bit. And not past safety meaning something that feels like too far.
Yeah.
Because I think it's more about making the safe space where then that can happen. And I do think that is super valuable to me and like is what makes me feel deeply connected to others. And I really do enjoy that.
I think it gives me a lot of purpose when I can feel connected to anyone. It feels like a superpower. And it's one of my favorite things about the way that I like to go about social life. Yeah, there's something that feels so good and liberating about meeting someone random and just having a bomb conversation about something that you would never talk to a stranger about.
Yeah.
Like something that really hits deep.
Tess is kind of the queen of that.
The
From the amount of experience I've had with her. Yeah.
And it's something that I've had to just own from the get-go. It's not something that I can always like ease into. Sometimes I just have to get out there with like the question, the big question, you know, one of these assumption questions.
Will you marry me?
That one's in my toolbox for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, but there's something that feels so much. There's something that feels really easy about it with strangers because there's no. It almost feels like there's a lot less social pressure because you might never see them again.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I see that.
So often I feel a lot less social anxiety with strangers talking about very deep things because no strings
Oh,
attached.
that's fascinating.
No,
It's like opposite social anxiety. Like that, what I think a lot of people call social anxiety, but like I'm afraid to talk to new people versus, yeah. So what would you say, because if you're like the queen of these types of interactions, what would you say would be like your number one piece of advice or just like a first thing that you would tell someone who's like, I really want to connect with random strangers, but I find it very challenging, or I don't know what to do.
I would say remind yourself that it's low risk, high reward.
Cool.
Low risk because if this stranger doesn't like you, thinks you're weird, you might never see them again. Actually, chances are you're never going to see them again. But, and so therefore, the social anxiety should be reduced, right? Because social anxiety, fear of rejection, embarrassment, shame, etc. Whereas, if things go well, then great, you might have a lasting friend or just a friendly face on the street. It could be anything, but low risk, high reward.
Yeah, even if it's just like a really cool interaction that brightens up your day. Like I've had just a couple like very random in the last few weeks or so, just like random cool interaction with people I probably won't see again, and it's like just like woo, like I forgot how good that could feel. Like that's so cool. Yeah.
And there's something about it, that the unexpectedness that feels extra satisfying, because when you're with your close friends, you're gonna expect to feel good, right? Ideally, you surround yourself with people who you feel really fulfilled by and can have these conversations, etc. You know you're gonna feel good after. Whereas with strangers, it's a toss-up. You're not expecting anything from it, and so that extra boost is like a power-up.
Yeah.
I also, one of the last things that was said in this was the dude saying like, if you come at someone with one of these assuming questions, they're gonna have to react. And it brought up this feeling inside of me of like the playfulness that life can have, of like people. I've been looking at people a lot recently, like kids, or more like animals, like dogs and cats, where like they want to have this like back and forth play exchange.
Yes.
And when you can set someone up
Yeah.
for an exchange like that,
Nice.
like it just creates like this bubbly, it just makes life a little bit more fun. And
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful reason to just like be more free when you're walking outside.
Yeah.
Because again, some people are gonna just like turn their head and be like, that person's weird. They're gonna assume that you're the crazy guy from this video. But so many people are gonna be excited that for once in their life, like a spark came in.
Yeah.
You know, it just ignited them a bit.
Yeah.
Play is so underrated.
I've been feeling like I want more banter in my life, and just like silliness. Yeah.
All right, let's see how this concludes.
Let's see it.
But what I found is that if you're really paying attention, you'll actually be able to make a correct assumption most of the time. And when that happens, when your assumption is correct, they will almost always start opening up. Because this is the cue for them to open up that bottle, to let out all those emotions and thoughts they've been holding in for who knows how long. Right? We all know that talking about our problem helps relieve the stress that comes along with it. And by making a correct assumption, you've essentially told them, hey, I'm the perfect person to talk to about this subject. I don't really have a filter, so I probably won't judge you. And to top it off, I care about you in this conversation. So I am the perfect candidate for you to talk to. And that's how you get someone to open up, by reducing your filter and asking assumption questions. Now, the information you learned in this video is helpful, and it will work, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything unless you take action and you turn it into a habit.
I do like that point that, and I think a big thing with like Learn With Us and an experience that Mitch and I had, because we ran this channel for a few years back in the day, and then we took a big pause, and now we're coming back. And the reason why we took a big pause was also because we had been learning a lot of things mentally.
Yeah.
And then it felt like it was time to apply a lot of things in the physical. And something like this can be such a key to your life. Like, if you decided to take these 2 steps, tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow will be different. And that's the beauty of watching something like this, and the beauty of the internet and having so much knowledge at our fingertips, is the fact that the keys are sitting right there. But there's this like, I think it's a famous quote from the Bible, or just a part of the Bible, where there are people like in a jail cell, and somebody opens the door to the jail cell, but the prisoner is convinced that they deserve to stay in prison, and they don't want to get up and leave the jail cell. And it's like a metaphor for the prisons that we keep ourselves in, because you're often given the key. You know, I could do these 2 things, but we hold ourselves back, and I think that's a really interesting thing.
I also love how in the video it's just 2 things.
You've actually never been here for the way we end these videos.
This is Tessa's first ever reaction.
How did she do? Judge. Harsh judgment.
1 to 10. 1 to 10. She put herself out there.
You can add a 0 in there.
Now judge.
Yeah.
Oh.
0 to 10. 0 to 10.
Oh, I thought you said...
Oh, sorry, thanks, 100.
I thought you were like, you can put a 0 on there. It could be the 100 out of 10.
I like that.
0 to 100. We'll give them all the options.
Yeah, for real.
0 to 100. How to test do? Judge.
Anyway, the way that we say goodbye on this channel is the 2 things that matter most in life, which are...
Friends. And Spikeball.
we say...
Am I wrong?
We say peace and much love.
Oh.
See you all next episode.
Much love.
Peace and many blessings.